Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Podcast with your host, Jeff Lopes. Jeff has over 2 decades experience as a serial entrepreneur, building brands like Kimura from his home basement to a multi-million-dollar global brand that has sold over 250,000 pairs of boxing gloves. Jeff's here to educate, guide, and drive you on the process of bringing your ideas and dreams to reality with the inspiring stories from some of the top business minds.
Welcome to episode number 67 of the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today Sean Gray from Arizona. Sean is the author of 22 Without a Clue, Great Entrepreneurial Journey. Sit back, everybody, and enjoy. We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on from Scottsdale, Arizona. We met on Instagram. Great dude, Sean Gray. Say hello, buddy.
What's up, everyone? Jeff, hey, man, thanks a lot. Pleasure to be here.
I'm super excited to have you here. One thing that attracted me to Scott is when I first initially saw 22 Without a Clue. And that was, it just clicked me. I'm like a lot of 22-year-olds, they have that mindset, but they don't understand it. And you obviously found the reality of it. So let's talk about where you are currently in your life and what you're doing. And we're just have a conversation with it, brother. So what are you up to now?
Yeah, man. Right now, so I'm at an interesting time in my life. You know, I had success early on, which was cool, and I'm grateful for. And I also had some really big failures early on, which I'm also grateful for. But one of the biggest things that I've had to deal with was my mom passed away in December of this past year.
My condolences, brother.
Yeah, man. It was it's not a pain I wish on anybody. You know, you have that person in your life. You know, it's just like your son, right? He's your guy, right? He's your person, and it's not always a family member. Sometimes it's a friend or a spouse. But for me, my person was my mom, man, and She was fighting a battle with cancer. She ended up losing that battle in December of this past year. And I was fortunate, to really tell you where I'm at, I got to kind of tell you where I've been. In that whole 22 Without a Clue is really the thing that started the journey, man. It was, I got out of school. I was 22 years old, and 22 Without a Clue. I had no idea, what I wanted to do with my life. I had no real world experience, no real world skills. My entire identity was tied up as a football player, right? And so, that was a big transition. I had to let go of who am I outside of this? This is all I've ever known, right? So, but I got out into the real world, and I was like, the only thing I know is that I don't want to give up this newfound freedom that I felt and experienced for the first time in my life, right? Because everything in my life up until that point was scripted for me, right? You're on a track. Yeah. Where to go, how to dress, when to be there, when you can leave, when to raise your hand, everything, school, sports, religion, everything was scripted for me. And then you get out of college and it's poof, right? Like you're floating in space, right? And the natural thing to do is, this is so uncomfortable, I'm going to latch on to somebody else's system, go get a job, right? Plug right back into the same track you were on, right? And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. Luckily, my mentor came to me. My dad was my first mentor. And he said, Sean, most kids are getting out of school right now and they're going to ask themselves a question. And unfortunately, they're going to solve the question that they ask, right? You want great answers, you got to ask great questions. He's like, they're going to get out of school. And the next logical question based off of how they were brought up is, what do I do to make money? Right? And it makes money the end goal. And it makes doing something, exchanging your time and effort for that money as the means to get it. Yeah. Right. So he challenged me, and mine and my dad's relationship was on rocky terms at the time too. So I was like, forget what you have to say type of thing. But I kind of took it to heart, and I'm so glad I did. And he said, instead of saying, what can I do to make money? Ask yourself this question. What can I build that will afford me the lifestyle I want to live? Right now lifestyle is the end goal instead of money, and building something instead of doing something is how you get there. Sure, they both require work, but one is work in the beginning, as you know, and then you get to reap the benefits if you build those systems. And so I was like, okay, that actually kind of makes sense. And the last place I see myself is sitting in a cubicle or in somebody else's system. So I just embarked on a journey. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it changed my life. And my first year out of college, I just got as many credit cards as I could. I kind of understood that credit was going to be important. So I got a bunch of credit lines, and I invested, literally, I went back and tracked it. I invested $47,000 my first year out of college, going to every single trade show, workshop, seminar, conference, retreat that I could find, that Kiyosaki.
Let me jump in there. When you started that journey, what was your vision, your end goal? Like what were you building to?
Yes, really good question, because that's what I'd ask the people that all the time, right? Begin with the end in mind. For me, it was freedom, but I didn't get really clear on that. You got Albert Einstein on your wall right behind you, right? He has a quote, and it's one of my favorite quotes to live my life by. It says, he said, "All arts, sciences, religions, vocations are branches of the same tree," right? To ennoble a man's life beyond the sphere of mere physical existence and move him towards freedom, towards personal liberation, right? So I didn't realize that personal freedom is really what everybody's kind of seeking. That personal happiness, personal fulfillment, that inner peace, right? And
let me jump in there. I think you're saying a lot of people are striving for that. I think a lot of entrepreneurs take a long time in their journey to actually understand that.
True.
Because it's that old thing that people say. How do you determine wealth? Is wealth your nice car? Is wealth your Porsche? Is wealth your thing? Or is wealth freedom? Right. And we talked before we went on air, like when my son was born, I had my daughter prior, I still hustled for 2 years. When my son was born, I realized everything I built allowed me at that point to turn around and I from that pretty much point on, I called the 3 to 7. 3 to 7 became family time. And I could honestly tell you, and you could ask my wife, as anybody knows me, for the last 11 years of my life, I have not been home from 3 to 7. I'm home from 3 to 7 for dinner every night. And that to me was wealth, being able to get a clock out at 2:30 from the office and go when the people are working till 5. So I think a lot of people, you found that at a very young age, a lot of people work, and they only realize it later on in life. That's why you see a lot of entrepreneurs become successful when they're 45 and 50 and 60, because it takes a long time before that clicks in where they measure wealth. Sorry for jumping in on that, but yeah.
No. I 100% agree with that. And one of the things one of my mentors told me, he's like, Sean, everybody gets it. Some people never get it, but everybody gets it at some point. The great ones, they get it early.
Yeah.
And I just feel super fortunate that, I'm kind of an extreme person by nature, so I kind of just dove all in, and went for it. But I think you're 100% right. Most people don't realize freedom's what they're after. And I think bring it back to what we were talking about a second ago, it's a byproduct of their questions that they're asking. A hashtag I always use, ask better questions. If you want great answers, you have to ask great questions.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to use that off you.
Yeah, go for it. I'm sure that's not mine, right? There's no original idea. But yeah, I 100%, freedom is that highest aspiration, but I feel like there's different levels to that freedom, or different types of freedom.
100%.
Personal freedom, I think, is the highest level, right? Financial freedom and social freedom, right?
Yeah.
I think that kind of encompasses it. Fortunately, I'm a white male in America. It doesn't get much more socially free than that, right? So I'm blessed there. I don't have to worry about going outside and bombs getting dropped on me like some countries, or covering my face. Well, I guess nowadays, that's another story.
That's another worry.
But we got that social freedom. But most people think that if I can just reach that financial freedom, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be fulfilled, right? And they think financial freedom, maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, like you'll never reach a financial freedom, because you're always a natural entrepreneur has that drive, that reset drive all the time. I call it. So is $1 million enough? No. Now I want 5 million. Is 5 million enough? Now I want 10 million. It's that drive and that competition within yourself, within your industry, within your peers, within your family. It's that constant drive. Yeah.
And I'll give you an example, and this has nothing to do with financial, but when you're a natural entrepreneur, I've done well enough for myself, and I've always had this mindset for years that at 45, I'm 43. I just turned 43. At 45, I was going to semi-retire. I have these vacation rental properties. I've done well. I could sit back and enjoy myself. And when the pandemic hit, I was home for 2 weeks because my main company, we had to let all over by my office because we fulfilled all the gyms in Canada and North America. And when they closed, I was like, shit. And then on my vacation rentals, short-term accommodations are all closed down by the government. So everything, my businesses all kind of collapsed for a little bit. So I reset everything. Right. And I automatically was home for 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, I started school again. I started the podcast. I started writing a book. It was just like, I started going on overdrive because I'm like, there's no way I could just sit here and do nothing. So I think that drive sometimes is confused by entrepreneurs because they look at the money, they look at the dollar signs. They don't look at it as accomplishments. They look at it as the dollar signs. Like I'm never rich enough. I'm never, you know what I'm saying? So it's learning to separate that. And I think that's a huge key with a lot of entrepreneurs not learning to, because they're always striving for that extra dollar kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a hard distinction to make. And just as a result of the way we're raised and the way society is, like getting past the idea that money's not even real. Like just, like it's not even real, and the time that we have, I know we were talking about this the other day on Instagram, the time that we have is so short here. Yeah. But you're absolutely right, man. Some people don't ever make that distinction. A lot of entrepreneurs don't. I had a friend who was literally has sold a company for 180 million and was literally miserable, drug addict, womanized, miserable. And obviously he had to find that journey where he's like, financial freedom is not going to make me happy. It's that personal liberation that I'm after. Yeah. So I feel really fortunate, man, the way my journey went, because, at most 22-year-olds aren't making, 6 figures, much less multiple 6 figures. I was doing really well. And so at 25 years old is kind of where my journey really shifted. Because I had success, man. I was working with, I was traveling the world. I was working with my business heroes. It was awesome, right? And I was standing in front of my vision board one day and looking at it in my bathroom, and I was living in Las Vegas at the time. And I'm looking at the things on there, the trips, the nice suits, the toys. I'm like, I have this. I'm living this. Like, what? Why am I not happy? What's missing? And it would just hit me like, it was weird, man. It was just like, none of this is real. Do I add another zero, go drive another car, take another trip? Like at what point? Like you were talking about 1 million, at what point? Right. And so that same time is when my mom got diagnosed with cancer. And so I was like, just my world came crashing down. And that's where I was like, you know what? If I did this once, I can build it again. I'm going to go get the real answers to life. Figure out who I am, why I'm here, like what am I, like what is this place, like all that stuff. So I literally turned off all my technology, man, and I booked a flight the next morning. I went to Costa Rica and I lived in a jungle for 3 months by myself and just went on this just spiritual journey, just like tried to find answers. So
okay,
I know, I see the look on your face.
So did you? Let's stop there. There's so many. You're talking. There's so many layers. I'm gonna be going back to a lot of your stuff. I want to talk about your football. I want to talk about your dad. There's so many things I want to talk about. But when I'm trying to even think of how to phrase this. Did you have any plans when you went there, or did you know where you're going, or you just picked up and went? Did you know anybody there?
Nope.
Why Costa Rica?
I have no idea, dude. I have no idea why Costa Rica.
It's beautiful.
It was literally, I was in my apartment in Las Vegas. I broke down crying in front of my vision board. Like, I'm not happy. I got everything I've wanted. I'm making more money than I ever imagined. What's missing? Yeah. And I went into just like a kind of a depression, really. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs actually talk about that, the depression that comes with success sometimes. Yeah.
Because you're never, I've been through it. I'm thinking I would guarantee a lot of entrepreneurs, majority of them go through it, because to be a true entrepreneur, you're never truly satisfied. And that's what makes you such a good entrepreneur, because you're always striving to be better, to be stronger, to be faster. You're always striving. It's almost like the top athletes in the world. Yeah. That's why I always say the top tier pro athletes in the world are essentially entrepreneurs, because they have that drive that you could probably get right through college. You could probably line up 30 athletes in one sport, and they'll have DNA genetically. They're probably on course. Is that one person that has the mind, the drive, and that's the one who gets to the pros. So that's the same with entrepreneurs. We're so driven that you're never happy, and there's moments when you that unsatisfaction. It's like, I haven't made it right. I didn't get that right, or I want more. And you do spiral into, and it's something that a lot of people don't talk about. Even though you're successful, there are moments when you spiral mentally and you're like, this is not right. Something's not right. Something's missing here. I've been through it. I think a lot of people go through this. That time when you question it, right? And some people can just shake it off and move on. Like I do. I just try to usually shake it off and give my kids a hug and talk to my wife. And I'm lucky I have the support of my wife, and I can just move on from it. But there are people that like yourself, they need to figure it out. So I'm glad you did. So continue your story. So you get off that plane in Costa Rica. What the hell were you thinking when you got there?
Man, I literally went with a backpack. That's it. Like not even like a backpacking backpack.
Yeah.
Just a backpack. And I had no real plan. I hopped off the plane. I tried to get as close to the jungle as away from tourists. I didn't want to be in a tourist area. Yeah. I think that's why I chose Costa Rica. I was like, I want to go someplace, but I know is like, somewhat of a healthy, chill environment.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to go party. I'm not trying to meet people. I'm trying to go be alone.
Yeah.
So, man, when I was down there, I went and I found this tree house, this little Airbnb tree house. And I literally, it was probably this, 10 by 10 little tree house thing. It was cool. But when I was there, I was just searching for answers. I grew up in a very Christian home, very legalistic, very dogmatic, very, if this, then that.
Yeah.
And so I wanted answers. I studied Judaism, Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism. I read, The Noble Truth, Eightfold Path, studied energy and quantum physics. And I read like 24 books, like Brian Greene's Hidden Reality, which is like a 900-page book. I went in. And then I just, at some point, I was fasting, I was meditating. At some point, I just had this like breakthrough. It's hard to explain. And just like this nirvana feeling, just like everything just disappeared all of a sudden. It was just like, peace that surpassed all understanding, nirvana, whatever, however you want to describe it. I felt that and experienced it. Like, for a couple of weeks after, I was able to see, I know it sounds kind of woo-woo, but I was able to see like auras, like colors coming off of people's heads. Like it was insane. Like my whole reality was changed about what the world is, what we are, what I am.
Yeah.
And so once I kind of got to a place, I felt like I was at peace. I ended up coming back. There's a long story that's in there that I would love to share. It's on my YouTube channel. But it's a lot to share. But
can you break it down into a shorter version?
Possibly. So, I came back from Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Right. And I felt like I was straddling two worlds, like one foot in this like spiritual, almost close to getting answers of figuring out what life is. And then one foot in this, like, I still got bills to pay. I had businesses that I was operating. I put everything on hold. I had people calling me in the middle of projects. Like, probably wasn't the best thing to do in terms of a business standpoint, but I didn't care at that point.
Yeah.
Right. And so I come back and I was just like, man, I feel like I got to go back to Costa Rica. And so literally the day I got back, I booked a flight to go back like 5 days later. This is where it gets trippy, right? So I end up watching a documentary because I was just consuming a bunch of new information, right?
Yeah.
I watched this documentary called The Reality of Truth.
Okay.
And in there, there's this guy, his name is Gerard Powell. And this is a guy who was made multi-millions, kind of had a similar experience where it's like, I'm not happy. What is it? Went to Costa Rica, ended up doing plant medicine, having a huge spiritual breakthrough, and was like, I want to open up a place like this. And so turned out that it was in Costa Rica where the place he wanted to build. And I was like, wow, I wonder if he actually built it, right? Because I was just watching it in a documentary that were talking about it. Go look it up. Turns out to be a real place. It's just trippy. I don't know how this happened. I wrote down a manifestation, and I just, for like an hour, just repeated it. And it said, I will be working with Gerard Powell to bring peace and enlightenment to as many people as possible, traveling around speaking, right? Because I was already speaking and traveling around with Kiyosaki and doing that stuff. And so I was like, this is what I want to do. Literally, you think I'm crazy. The next morning, I wake up to a phone call, and I'm on with one of my colleagues who I was working on a project with. And he's like, hey, Sean, based off our conversation yesterday, I reached out to one of my friends, and on the phone with us is Gerard Powell. And he was literally on the phone. Like, I'd never met this guy before, had no idea about anything, like on the phone with him. And he goes, tell me your story. Told him about the whole, like, hey, I'm standing in front of my vision board. I'm not fulfilled. I'm not happy. He's like, I completely get it. He's like, what are you looking to do right now? I said, honestly, man, I'm looking to, I would love to help you out sometime, and be a part of this. What are you guys looking for? He's like, well, right now I'm looking for someone to travel around and speak on behalf of this. He said, you sound like the perfect fit. How soon can you get to Costa Rica? And I said, I'll be there in 2 days. Where in Costa Rica? And he goes, in Tamarindo. And I'm like, where I'm staying is literally 30 minutes away from Tamarindo. So I flew back down. Long story short, started a relationship with him, did some marketing consulting. He put me up in his resort for 10 days, ended up doing ayahuasca at the only place in the world that's legally allowed to administer it. And that was kind of just a wild manifestation coincidence.
So how long did that journey last there, working there or traveling with him, guest speaking? That's something you're not doing that anymore.
No.
How long did that last?
It fizzled out. We did like 2 or 3 different things. I helped him with some different marketing campaigns. It didn't last very long, maybe 6 months or so.
Yeah.
But still have the relationship, and I started to go get picked back up to like figuring out, all right, how do I be in the world and not of the world? How do I do and be? Right?
Yeah.
It clicked with me, Shakespeare's to be or not to be. Makes sense now. Like it's a question every day, like to be or not to be. So
let me dive. We have so many layers of you. Let's go back to you said football. So you said football was a big part of your life. Let's talk about what football meant to you, because football in the US is massive. Did you play college? Did you play high school? Where'd you play?
Yeah, I played high school. I grew up in the Bay Area in California. Went to a real good school. We were ranked. We were 1 game away from going to state. And then I got a scholarship to go play football in college. It was D2, D3 level. We were independent, so we could play whoever, which was really cool. So I got to play some, D1 AA teams, D2 powerhouses. Got to travel. Awesome college experience.
What position did you play?
Defensive back.
Yeah.
Safety and corner. Back when I had dreadlocks down to here.
You had dreadlocks.
Yeah, 205. I was a different person back then.
So I always say sports build strong foundations for young individuals. And both my kids are heavily into my daughter does high performance dance. My son plays competitive baseball. Sports is a big part of their life. And I've kind of built that foundation, fitness and sports. That bonding, that energy with all your teammates, how much do you think that benefited you as an individual?
Yeah, man, I think, it's hard to look back at your own thing and think, okay, what would have been like different? What lessons would I have learned? Where would I have been? Yeah. I absolutely loved sports. But again, my axe to grind with the sports was I ended up tying my identity up in the sport, what I was doing.
Interesting.
And I feel like a lot of athletes do that. But what was your question again? I feel like I think sports for young athletes, it builds such a strong foundation. It teaches them work ethic. It teaches them leadership. It teaches them teamwork. It teaches them so many foundations. That's why, like I said, a lot of my children, I have them both in competitive sports, because I find it's these building blocks you're building when they're young, and things they're going to learn and take on when they're older. Because kids nowadays are in front of a computer. My kids they don't play with video games, and it's something that we've
we're open within our house and they rather work out than play with a video game. And I think a lot of parents, they get home, they throw their kids in front of a video game and they don't care. The kids are in the room gaming all night. And what are they benefiting? What are they learning from that? Right. So I just think sports is a huge foundation for young kids. And I think parents need to focus on that. Right.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I mean, all the basic things that you feel, teamwork, cooperation, perseverance. I think, sports games, especially football, it's like a microcosm of life,
Yeah.
It condensed down into a season, into a game. Each one is its own life, which is really cool. And as you go through, I think analogies, I mean, Jesus, one of the greatest teachers of all time, right? He talked in parables and analogies, right? And tried to meet people where they're at. So sports, I think, is a great way to anchor lessons and anchor those important things. So my dad was a big influence on me in sports, and guided us through those for sure.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I do. I'm the youngest of 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any other entrepreneurs in your family?
They were. Then I have 3 sisters. 2 of them became moms and had tons of kids. And one of them is kind of an entrepreneur, I'd say.
Yeah.
And every single one of them at some point has gone down that path and worked on projects outside of the traditional way. 2 of my sisters were investing in real estate when they were younger. So little entrepreneurial spirit for sure.
How was your dad's, I mean, you said you had an iffy relationship at the beginning with your dad. How was your dad's influence towards you being an entrepreneur? Did he have any? Did he guide you in that direction? Was he against it?
Huge. No. So it was really interesting because from the age of 0 to probably 10, from newborn to 10, I saw him in corporate America. Right. Okay. And he was just doing office sales. Now he got to a point where, because he was such a great salesman, he was able to have a little autonomy over his business, work from home. So we had the freedom, he wasn't always in an office, which was cool. And then at about 10 years old, he made the transition and became, full-blown entrepreneur, started businesses. I saw him start businesses. I saw him be successful. I also saw him lose a lot of money, and fail at businesses and have to rebuild it all. So just from watching him, I've learned a ton. But I think that the 2 biggest things that my dad has taught me, actually 3 biggest things my dad has taught me. And one of them, I think he's one of the best in the world, and that's unbiased, but sales. He learned from Tom Hopkins. Yeah. I was a kid. we were listening to those cassette tapes, and I didn't even realize that sales was just, I was learning it by being around him, and it just became a part of how I communicate. And I think it's the best skill that you can have in life. And it's something that
I've said that a million times on my podcasts. If you're going to teach one young individual, I actually think it should be mandatory in high school. Yeah. It should be an actual curriculum, because anything you do your whole life, you're selling yourself, whether it's an interview, whether it's a job, whether it's a career, whatever you do, you're selling yourself. So having that and learning it and understanding it. I had a mentor when I don't even call him a mentor, but you could call him that. My first real company was 19. I ran a consulting in the fitness industry, a company. Yeah. And I had this gentleman named Steve. And I learned sales, just like you take off your dad. I learned sales off him. And it's crazy is 24 years later, I'm taking NLP courses, and stuff I'm learning now is shit he taught me when I was 19. Commonalities, building rapport, and all this shit is stuff at 19. This guy 24 years ago, when no one even talked about NLP, probably wasn't even around. This guy was eye contact, eye movement. It just, everything I'm learning now is like, this guy was teaching me this 24 years ago. It's incredible. And it's all sales. Sales are such an important thing for individuals to learn. It doesn't matter what you're going to do, is you're going to benefit from it. So that's pretty cool. You're learning after your dad at such a young age.
100%. Yeah. It's the best skills. Like you said, you're selling yourself, an opinion, an idea, product, service. Everyone is constantly selling. I posted something on Instagram a couple weeks ago. You're alive because somebody made a sale.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So no, it's a super valuable skill. But so that's one of the things that was a huge influence on me. And the other thing, like what we were talking about earlier, he told me all the time growing up, if you want great answers, you have to ask great questions. Right. So he was the points that the way he would make these points when we were growing up in terms of being ridiculously intentional with the words that we choose, because our words are powerful. Right.
Yeah.
So if we're like, I remember being a kid laying down on the floor watching TV with my dad, and his knees are up, like blocking my view. And I would say, Dad, can you put down your knees? And he would go, knees, you're stupid, you're ugly, nobody likes you. Right? He would start putting them down.
Yeah.
And I meant, no, can you lower your knees? Right? Can you put them on the floor? Right?
Yes.
And thinking, hey, think about what you're saying. Right? Think about what you're asking for. Be ridiculously intentional with his words mean things. Right? So
yeah, that's pretty amazing. So your dad had a huge impact on your life.
Oh, absolutely.
Can I ask you why you said you had an iffy relationship with him?
No, it wasn't always iffy.
Yeah.
I guess like any, adolescent male with their parents, you have some conflicts, but it was just a really hard time for my family when it was like I was just getting out of college, my junior, senior year of college. It was just tough, man. My brother was battling a drug addiction. My sisters were not in some great relationships. And, my dad's business they were really struggling coming out of the recession, out of the crash.
Yeah.
The marriage was tough for my parents at the time. It was just a lot of things. I didn't feel like I had support around me, and it was just, when you don't have much self-awareness or emotional intelligence as a young man, you start pointing the finger a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think as a young man, I think that's a commonality from most adults, right? When things are not going right, a lot of people don't have the awareness to look in the mirror and figure out what's wrong with them before. A lot of people just turn around and try to pass the blame onto other people. And that's just common. That's almost human nature.
Right.
I go is when you're able to look in the mirror and ask yourself first what's wrong with yourself and correct what's wrong with you, all of a sudden everything else starts falling in place.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people don't do that and realize that. So that, I mean, it's you realize that I'm hearing you with a lot of things that you're saying, Sean, and you came to realization with a lot of important things in your life at a very young age. How old are you right now?
28.
Yeah, you're still a young man. You're still a baby. So 28, when a lot of individuals that I talk to in their 30s and 40s, and it's like I'm trying to make them realize this now, when you in your 20s already had this understanding, right? And I thought I had a lot of clarity when I got married at 27, and I thought I had a lot of clarity. But you're constantly learning. I always say this: day you die is the day you stop learning. You're always learning something. But it's so important that you, like I said, at such a young age, you're able to figure these things out, which it just shows how much more you're going to still grow and how far your future could be as long as you want it to be there, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, that leads perfectly into really the third thing that my dad really instilled in me. One was sales. One was, did I already say asking great questions?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, then that was the one. The third thing was, and it's really a byproduct of asking great questions, is that question. One of the best questions you can ask is why.
Yeah.
Right. And to your point, in terms of getting that clarity, right? He's always told me, with clarity of vision, strategy and tactics become self-evident. Right?
Yeah.
That end vision in mind, the steps to get there become very clear. How do you get that end vision in mind? How do you begin with the end in mind? You got to ask why, right? Because how many entrepreneurs want to start a business? Oh, well, why do you want to start a business? Well, because, I think it'd be really cool and I want to make a lot of money. Well, why do you want to make a lot of money? Well, because, growing up, I didn't really have a lot of money and it sucked. Well, how did it suck? Well, we were never able to go anywhere. We never had any fun with my family. Okay. So the real reason.
It's funny. I'm going to dive in there. I was having this conversation with somebody and I'm dying right now because my back of my mind's spinning. I'm trying to think of who it was. And they said to me, if you ask the question why 5 times, you'll help somebody figure out that answer. So it's funny because as you're saying that, because I remember that, and when I tested it after a couple times, and he's an entrepreneur, but I can't remember who it was, but he said we were having this conversation. He goes, "You want to find an answer for anyone? He goes, stand in front of them, let them ask you a question, and then ask the question, just the question why, 5 times. By the time you get to the 5th time, they'll find clarity into their own answer."
Yeah.
I'm like, that's pretty fucking cool. And as you're saying, why it was clicking in the back of my head, back of my head spinning, right? So it's just pretty cool.
Absolutely. And you see how it's all connected too, because 100%. Sales, asking great questions and why, they go hand in hand. I mean, one of the best techniques you can do in sales is be a 4-year-old. I do it all the time when I get stuck in sales calls.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Why is that? They could have said the sky's blue. And that's interesting. Why is that? They're going to tell me some other reason, something deeper as to why they thought the sky is blue.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
Those 3 things. Yeah. He definitely was a big impact on me. And really, I mean, when I'm doing sales, when I'm doing any consulting with businesses or entrepreneurs, it's literally, or helping college graduates find clarity of what lifestyle they want. All I'm doing is asking them questions. I don't have the answer. You don't have the answer, right? It's like they have the answer. You have the answer for you, right? All I can help you do is draw that out and bring awareness to it.
Yeah. I mean, that is a form of almost NLP, right? Because you're essentially is meta-tagging. You're essentially just you keep asking the question, letting you have the answer. You always do have the answer. It just sometimes it takes a little longer to get it out to you, and you need somebody to get it out of you, right? So, and when you have that clarity in your own personality to be able to get the answers out of yourself, then you're almost at a higher level at that point, right? And it's very hard to get at that level. But yeah, just asking the questions. So let's dive into what you do. What are you currently doing right now, business-wise?
So let me backtrack. I'm going to ask this question. Yeah. Just leads into it perfectly. But I came back from Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Came back to Las Vegas and where I was living at the time, to a notice. I forgot my lease was up because I'd been in Costa Rica for so long. So I was like, yo, you got to be out in 3 days. I was like, that's fine. I wanted to change anyway. Yeah. Packed everything up in a U-Haul, started headed to San Diego. Was like, no, California's too expensive, not going back there. Headed to Scottsdale, and I ended up here. And for a while, I was trying to figure out, okay, this spiritual side, being in the world, of the world, how do I do and be? What's the balance here? And after a couple of years of I came back to Costa Rica. I was like, hey, time's short. I started modeling. I started doing MMA. So I love the brand that you got.
Okay, we got to talk about this. Okay, go.
But I came back and I was like, man, life is so short. I kept on trying to have this image in my head that I was supposed to be of what success was and everything. And I was like, I'm just going to go do all the stuff that I've always wanted to do that I never did. So started modeling and acting. I started doing MMA. I took a fight. I got signed by an agency. It was a ton of fun. And then my mom kind of took a bad turn.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know how much time. And it was kind of sucked because obviously it sucks for many reasons, but I was kind of getting to a point where I was feeling like I was finding that balance of, being in the world, not of the world, doing and being and working in spiritual. It's like, okay, here's how I want to contribute to the world, and here's how I'm going to be fulfilled in doing so. And I started working on it, and was launching a digital marketing agency with a couple nuances. Mom took a bad turn, put everything on hold, and literally just for the last year wasn't working, wasn't doing anything, I was just spending time with my mom, taking her to treatments, things like that. And I don't regret any of that.
No, never.
Yeah.
Never.
No. So she just passed in December, and obviously that was tough. I took about 3-4 months where I was just, alone, dark,
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I know this isn't a healthy place to stay in. I got to keep moving forward. Reconnected with all my business relationships early this
year. I'm going to talk about one thing before we get into it.
Yeah.
And it's something I know you're almost put in that situation where you didn't have to, but you did get back, spend that time with your mom. I hear this God, I hear this all the time, and it is something that it drives me absolutely insane. It just pisses me off. Is when a loved one passes, and I have somebody, I'm having a conversation with somebody, and they're like, "Oh, this person has passed." I wish when somebody passes, and and they come back to me, and they're having a conversation like, "Oh, I wish I did this," or "I wish I had more time with this." It just drives me insane because you had the time, you didn't utilize the time. I'm 43. I've been married for 17 years. It doesn't pass a morning I don't call my mom and have a conversation with her. I call my mom every night. I think we talked. I don't know if we talked about it. I call my mom every night before we go to bed.
Yeah.
I see my parents minimal a couple times a week, even if it's for a 5-minute coffee with my dad, because I know they're not going to. I might go before them, but there's a good chance if you just follow the path of life that they're not going to be around too much longer at their age. And I don't want to live with regrets, and I hate people live with regrets. So I just want to almost praise you in a way that's saying, hey, you know what? I mean, it's hard what you went through, but you had that higher understanding that I needed to be there for my mom, because you have the rest of your fucking life for your business. You have the rest of your life for whether it's shit in your life. So I just want to congratulate you. I don't know if say congratulate is probably the right word. I just want to say this. I'm happy you did that. That's all I can say is I'm happy you did that, because this is something it's hard now still, and it's still fresh, but you are going to, till the day you pass, you're going to appreciate you spending that extra time with her till the end, kind of thing. Right. So I'm happy you did that. Sorry for cutting you off.
No, you're good, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I absolutely don't regret it. In fact, it makes me super sad because I can't delete anything from my mom in my phone. And I have a text message from her one day when she was in the hospital, and she was saying that she missed me and she wanted me to come visit her because it'd been a few days, because I was trying to keep the wheels on the bus moving. And
of course.
Stuff. And so it's just like, and that's still, as much time as I spent with her, I still have those little regrets of like, so fucking dumb, Sean. Why wouldn't you just go to the fucking hospital? You know what?
But you have the understanding that she's with you. She's with you in spirit. She's with you. She's always going to be in your heart. She's always going to be in your mind. You're never going to forget her. And she's with you. And just now all you could do, and I tell you, Sean, is just live a life that if she was here, she'd be proud of.
Yeah.
If you do that, you've done good for yourself.
Yeah. No, and I feel very blessed. We had no ill will, no unsaid things. Everything was, it was as good as way of any, I guess.
Yeah.
In terms of, we had an awesome relationship. Awesome relationship.
That's good. That's good. I love that, brother.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I cut you off. I don't even know where we were.
I was bringing it back to, that was kind of your original question of in the beginning. What are you doing now? And so I had been kind of in like a rebuild phase, kind of a lot of pivots. And so it was interesting though, because right when I got Extreme Clarity, was about to hit the ground running. This was like in March, obviously with COVID. And so that changed the landscape of things. And then I started seeing everybody in there. I was going to kind of start back up the digital marketing agency that I was working on and had started. Everybody and their mom seemed to be moving online and starting a digital marketing agency. So I was like, okay, my whole philosophy is not coming in the front door. Those are crowded, side door, back door, right? What's the pivot I can make here? And I've been collaborating with a guy, goes by the handle of Nerd Gone Rogue on Instagram. And so we more or less partnered up, and we're operating a media company. It's called Growth Hacks, and it's for creatives by creatives. Externally, it's a media company. Growth Hacks Media. It's internally, we work with clients, we do consulting and whatnot. Externally, it's a media company, right? So the idea is, and it's Growth Hack. The traditional way of marketing, spending, is popping up. You see people all the time, funnels, right? A lot of businesses are built in funnels. My philosophy is more of an ecosystem, more of a wheel, right?
Okay.
Problems are related. If somebody has one problem, chances are they have a problem that's related to that problem.
Yeah.
So instead of just solving one problem, sure, that one product or one service might solve that problem, but move them around a wheel instead of moving them down the funnel. So
Okay.
lifelong relationships, if that makes sense, right? So somebody who's interested in real estate is probably also interested in gold, right? Someone who's interested in gold is probably also interested in guns, right? Like that type of thing. So there's lots of different angles. On top of that, when it comes to marketing and it comes to PR, right? People will pay tons of money for PR, and it's insane. It's like you're paying for that. It's not even real PR necessarily. But it's one thing for you, Jeff, to come out and say, hey, Jeff, I'm the man. I can consult for you. Here's why. Here's my track record. It's another thing if Forbes comes out and says, hey, here's a problem that a lot of people are facing. Here's a guy who found a solution. If you're having that same problem, check him out. That third-party endorsement is so much more powerful.
Of course. Yeah.
So we essentially became a digital marketing agency and PR firm through a media company.
Okay.
That makes sense. So we're growth hacking the way marketing is done. We don't spend, a lot of people spend 10,000, 20,000, 30, 100, six figures a month on ads and stuff. And we're able to generate a lot of that same traffic without actually
so you build relationships with these magazines, these stuff like that, like Forbes and Entrepreneur and stuff like that, I'm assuming?
We don't go to Forbes or pay for these other features or work with these other companies. We have our own. It's called Growth Hacks. You can go to growthhacks.com. It's essentially a media publication like Forbes, right? What my partner is in Catriel, Nerd Gone Rogue on Instagram. What he's amazing at, he's a tech nerd, right? Nerd Gone Rogue, right?
Yeah.
He's in corporate and he was like, screw this.
Yeah.
Create, not compete, right? And so he's really good about catching on to trends and what is about to spike in searches and stories that are coming out that are being published by Forbes, that are being published by Fox and CNN, these big media companies. He's able to find out and catch on to these waves, and he publishes the story like right before, somehow, like a day or two, always. I don't know how he does it. It's his secret sauce.
Yeah.
But publishes these stories that are related to these things and basically takes advantage of where the eyeballs are already going. Instead of trying to say, hey, look over here, we just kind of insert ourselves into the conversation, right? And instead of us saying, oh, Sean D. Gray, he can help you with sales, he can help you with whatever.
Yeah.
Right? It's an article that is capturing and jumping on the wave of this, of the trend of the attention.
And these articles are on your own platforms.
On our own platforms.
So they just get organic spider webs, and they just populate really quickly up the search engines because everybody's searching for those.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly. So that's a part of it. There's other tricks that he does too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But exactly. And again, that third party endorsement is so much more powerful than me coming out and kind of promoting myself. And if we don't have to pay for that, and we don't have to pay for the attention because we're just inserting ourselves into the conversations, right, that are already happening, right?
Oh,
it's kind of what we talked about earlier, because I'm a big believer in education-based selling, right? In terms of, you said when we were talking about asking why, like they have the answer, right? And a good salesperson asks them the questions and leads them down a path to where they discover for themselves that the next logical thing, the next best thing for them to do, the next step is to work with you, or, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, right. An idea thought takes root so much more deeply than an idea given.
Yeah.
And so make it their idea type of thing, right? And again, when it comes to that marketing, if I pop up and say, hey, I'm awesome, come follow me, that's not their idea. If they're reading an article and solving a problem that they have, and they see, oh, this guy, oh, that's their idea, right?
Yeah. No, I like that. I love that. I'm going to ask you. We're going to go back because something you said before, and I can't let it pass. MMA.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that? When did you have your fight? Amateur fight, I'm assuming.
Yes, amateur fight.
How long did you train before you did amateur? And where did you train in Vegas?
No, actually in Scottsdale I did.
Oh, did you train in Scottsdale? Okay.
At Fight Ready. Henry Cejudo fights out of there.
Yeah.
So, man, it was cool. I came out here, just got linked up with them, started loving it. And
how long did you train before you took your first fight?
Dude, I got thrown in there because the coach just liked me. He's like, dude, you're fighting. You don't have a choice. Start practicing with the amateur team. I was like, okay, cool. Let's run it. It was maybe 3 months.
Did you have any martial art background in the past?
No, I had wrestled my freshman year and a little bit of my sophomore year in high school.
Yeah, so that's a good base to start with. Wrestling is probably the number one base you want to start with when you're dealing with MMA, right?
Definitely. Yeah. No, it was.
Do you still train?
Well, since COVID hit, all the gyms kind of shut down.
They're not reopened there yet?
They're open for privates. I don't think, as far as I know, Fight Ready. I don't think they've opened back up yet. In terms of,
is this something you want to continue training when things get back to reality?
For sure, man. We talk about freedom. Like that's why I love it. I've never done anything that's so freeing. Like it forces you to be in the moment.
Oh no. Yeah. Even just sparring, there's nothing like sparring, nothing to get your heart rate going, nothing to get your adrenaline going, knowing that somebody's going to punch you in the face. Right. Yeah. So it's
exactly.
It's a pretty amazing sport. Yeah. That's cool. Where do you see, I mean, like I said, we talked about this in the beginning, like there's so many layers to you. So where do you see yourself in the next couple of years?
Well,
obviously your business is still kind of fresh. You're still growing.
Yeah.
And you're obviously you're getting over everything with your mom and all that. So everything's still fresh. Yeah. Do you see yourself continuing this path? When things open up, do you want to get back into public speaking? Like where do you see yourself?
Yeah, I would love to. My whole purpose, I feel that in life is creating freedom, creating more freedom for people, to free personal, more social freedom in the world, more personal, more financial freedom for people, more personal freedom. That's my purpose. It's my highest value. I designed my entire life off of that value, having control and freedom of my life. So the big vision in terms of the impact, the big, hairy, audacious goal, and how I want to create freedom in the world is I want to really revolutionize the education system. I think, probably don't even need to expound on that. We all can see the issues. But I think it's where the start is of forming our minds, and just it's so corrupt. It's a failing system. It's obsolete. So
where can you see you adding value to that? Like where would you even start in that?
Yeah.
Private schools?
Well, I would love to open up my own
private school, as I said.
Essentially, a private school that is
financially, there's a lot of money in that.
Experience based, a private school that's experience based, and it gives. My whole philosophy is don't live to get paid to live, right? So if I'm going to do something, I'm going to find a way to get paid to do it. Most people.
That's very European mindset.
Really?
You ever hear? Yeah. So if you. I was born in Canada. My parents are from Portugal.
Yeah.
Every time you go back, I go to Portugal. I haven't been there a few years, but every time you go back there, the European mindset, Italy, Portugal, places like that are very exactly what you said. They don't work; they work to live. That makes sense. Yeah. So they're all their stores, everything in Portugal, everything closes from 12 to 2:00. It's everything shuts down. People have naps. It's a different mindset. Everybody drives nice cars. They don't think of tomorrow, which is not a good thing either, but they don't think of tomorrow. They're living for today. They live for today. They don't give a shit about tomorrow. They live for today. Everybody enjoys life. Everybody's at the beaches. Everybody's at the cafes. It's a different mindset. And then you get to North America and it's work, go home, sleep, eat, boom, let's start again. Work. Weekend comes along, I got to cut the grass. Okay, I got to go with my kids. I got to go groceries. Okay, Sunday. Okay, I get to sit down and watch some football. Oh, finally rest day. And Monday we start again. And it's that shit mindset of this routine. And then people, once you get in this routine, good luck breaking it. Yeah. And Europe is as soon as you said that, that's essentially Europe. They work just enough to live as the best life they possibly can.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because they have a much longer life.
100%.
Life, whatever rate. They live
stress is probably biggest contributor to cancers, to other stuff is stress, right? It's poison to your body.
Yep.
Stress is complete poison to your body. And we live in North America and in such a high stress environment. It's just constantly I got to pay my bills. We live in this expensive lifestyle, and a lot of 9-to-5 jobs are barely paying enough to pay that. They're a basic lifestyle, right? I mean, you're an average family. I don't know how it is in Scottsdale, but an average family in Toronto, 2 decent jobs, you're making 35, 40, 45,000. Maybe if you're lucky, 50,000 for two basic jobs, factory jobs or something like that. How do you pay your bills? You're literally working. Put your kids in sports. Put your kid in dance. My daughter's in dance. It's $6,000-7,000 a year. Like, how do you pay these things? So you're constantly working just to pay the lifestyle. And it's exactly, yeah, that's a great mindset and I think a lot of people, if they could start instilling it into kids. I think the biggest problem is we, and that's where, as a father, I try to focus my attention on father entrepreneurs, because that's my goal. That's my purpose, to help build a balance between fathers and entrepreneurs and teach them how to teach their kids the right path, from fitness to the life lessons, to fear. Like my kids, like I try to find at least once a month something they're scared of, and I make them do it, and I force them to do it, because fear is not something that's brought up with us. Fear is something that's taught to us, and we hear that from our parents. Don't touch the stove, you're going to burn yourself. Don't fall, don't run down the stairs, you're going to fall. So you're constantly putting these messages in your children's minds, and you're building this fear, and you're teaching them how to be scared to try things. And I think parents got to break that bridge. And we're talking about your education is building a school, like we were talking about even before, teaching sales, teaching life lessons, teaching them how to be prepared to do our educational system doesn't teach anything like that.
Right. Yeah.
It teaches them.
Well, that's why.
Sorry.
That's why I think sales is such a valuable skill. It's what you said earlier. I think it should be in schools. Like I have a whole curriculum that I would love. It's financial education, sales. The art of asking good questions, art of communication. These are the things: critical thinking, self-awareness, emotional intelligence. Like, these are the things that need to be discussed and taught in schools. Have you, I mean, that I can honestly tell you, in a proper environment, in the proper location, a school like that, like a high school, it would have to be a high school base, right?
A high school base like that. And even sending it as a school you could either get your credits for university or college, or it'll guide you to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
You would be full.
Dude,
people would be paid the big ticket for that. And people do pay for private schools.
Well, here's the thing. What about this? What if you didn't have to pay for it? Because again, in line with my whole philosophy, don't get paid to live. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to find a way to get paid to do it. Right. And that's really how, when you ask what I do, like I mentioned the media company, just because that's the project we're working on right now. What I do is I leverage my relationships and my network and my sales skills to build streams of income around the things that I'm going to end up doing anyway. Right?
Okay. Give me an example.
So I'll give you a perfect example. The first business that I started was a firearms training brand.
Okay.
Right? I lived in Las Vegas and I got into shooting guns. It's an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
Every time you shoot around, it's like 50 cents. Right?
Yeah.
So instead of spending my time, which most people do, like retirement type concept. I'm going to work really hard to get enough money, and then I'm going to do what I want. Why don't you just go do what you want? And if you have financial education and sales skills, you can get paid to do anything.
Okay.
Right. So the first business was a firearms business. And so setting up a business around firearms, every time I went to the range, every time I bought something, it's tax deductible. Right. So that's for one. For two, because obviously marketing, every time I'm going out there, it's building relationships, potential new customers, right? But all I did, my two favorite types of businesses are broker businesses, and evergreen information products or services, things like that, because they both require you to either not create anything necessarily or not have to fulfill on anything. But you're still definitely solving problems.
Yeah.
Right. So, long story short, got connected with this firearms school, largest gun training facility in the country. And He invited, a group of people at midnight out to the middle of the desert to hear. He built a list of over 2 million people. And he was like, hey, I'll give you guys a marketing crash course of how I've done this. If you guys want to come out at midnight on the 4th of July. He's like, if you're willing to show up for that, I'll tell you all my secrets. He has a list of 2 million people. Maybe 30 people showed up, right? So I went out there, went up to him after, and he made an offer to everybody who was there. Basically, he's very much about the mission, right? He doesn't need money. And so he said, for every membership you sell, I'll replace it. So I'll basically give you an unlimited inventory of memberships to sell. You got to buy one, right? The membership was like $25,000. He said also, you can sell it, you can price it at whatever you want. But the stipulation was that you couldn't advertise the sale of it publicly, right? So he was thinking that, you're just going to talk to your network. Hey, do you want to go shoot guns? All right, we can sell you this membership type thing.
Yeah.
We went up to him after and said, hey, if we market it to a private list, is that okay? He's absolutely. So started a brand around firearms training advocates, started creating some free resources, how to travel with your gun, what to look for when buying your first gun, built up a list, social media following, and then we built the list through not advertising the sale, but through enter to win a firearms training class, enter to win a handgun, enter to win. We built it all up like that. And then obviously the people who are interested or wanting firearms training. And then now that they're on our private list, we can market to them. Right? So that's
how long of that process is that? I mean, it's not something you do overnight. From the start to the end, what is it, 1 year plan? Is it?
Well, I mean, now knowing what I know now, I mean, I could build that probably in a week. It would take time for the
organic growth of it.
Yeah, for the organic growth of it. But really where the time beforehand goes into it is doing what you want and building those relationships. Like I had to show up, I had to build the relationship. I had to be out there, you know? So
how many memberships did you end up selling? Do I'm asking?
I don't know. I mean, it didn't turn into anything huge. It was more of an experiment. It definitely, I mean, gave us tax advantages. We definitely, broke into the green, but it wasn't something that we held on to for a long time. It was more or less an experiment. But I'll give you another example. I operate a more or less a sales agency, but it's the goal of it is I think if you can sell, you are in complete control of your time. You can go make money anywhere.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So what I'll often do is there's often mentorships and trainings and courses that I want to go through. Right. And $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of going in the front door and just being another prospect, I'll go back door, build a relationship with whoever the person is, right? And then figure out what their needs, wants, goals, and desires are. Figure out how I can solve one of their problems and say, hey, in exchange for solving this problem for you, can I have access to your material? I'll also, by the way, what I want to do is promote your stuff because I believe in it. It's awesome. I want to share this with my audience. Right? Who's going to turn down more promotion?
Oh, nobody.
Right? No. Nobody's going to turn down more promotion. So something that I often do is, or if they have an offering that I want, hey, I'll sell this offering for you to my list in exchange for you giving me access. Yeah. So I've been able to get into a lot of trainings and a lot of mentorships and courses. And instead of me paying in the front door, I'm getting a rev share or an affiliate commission, or they've contracted me for something.
Back end sales of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm getting paid now instead of me paying for the training. I'm getting paid to go through the training.
So you've accumulated and built up this I'm assuming quite large mailing list and customer base.
No, I don't have necessarily.
You don't, huh?
No. I don't necessarily have a huge list by any means. I leverage other people's lists. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like, call me a lazy entrepreneur, but
or smart.
Yeah, OPE. Heard of OPM? Other people's money, other people's energy, other people's effort, other people's knowledge, other people's resources, and I feel like one of my gifts is seeing how things can fit together. Yeah. Right, seeing the big vision. Because of that, I'm able to meet people when they're here,
Yeah.
And say, hey, let's here's the vision I see. Can I help you? Type of thing.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what you've said and what you were talking about in the past, in the beginning of our podcast, was it was the networking, building relationships. You see, you've brought that up like probably 4 or 5 times in this conversation, which is such a key thing. And I think a lot of people don't realize is building your Rolodex, is building those relationships, talking to people. When I build relationships with people, I'll make sure minimal every 3 to 4 weeks. I'll just shoot them a message. Hey, what's up? How are you? How's life? It's just building that connection, just to keep in their ear and see how you're doing. And then some people you really connect with, and you see this is a good dude, or this is a good person, and I want to keep them in my life, and I want to see what happens with it, right? So it's just building that relationship and holding on to them and building a Rolodex. And always, David Milzer says this all the time. I had him on our podcast, and he says this all the time. I talked to him quite a bit, and he says, in one of his little posts the other day, he goes, if I'm in the room, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
Yep.
surround yourself around people that you're going to learn from, you're going to better, they have more experience than you. Surround yourself around people that you want to be.
Right. Yes.
If you put yourself in a crowd, it's that old saying when you hear your parents, when you're small, saying, I always hear this saying, like, show me your friends and I can tell you who you are.
Right.
Hang around the people you want to be. And if you could do that, and if you, like you said, you find ways to get there. If you could do that, you're in the right path. You're on the right track, right? It's such a huge aspect to growing a business and growing yourself as an individual, right?
100%. So when you ask me what I do is this is how I live my life.
Yeah.
I get paid to live. I get paid to do the things and learn the things and talk with the people that I want to talk with, that I want to, in the environments I want to be, right? And it's a product of 2 things: sales and strategic networking.
Yeah.
And really, strategic networking is a byproduct of sales. So it's
sales. Crazy, but it all comes back to sales.
It solves every problem.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I love that.
I call that what you were talking about, strategic networking. Strategic networking.
Yeah, I love it.
Or strategic relationship.
Sean, we're at an hour and 15 minutes. I'm not going to take more of your time. Time flies. We had a great conversation. This is awesome, buddy. I'm gonna have you back on. 100%. I'm gonna have you back on. It was amazing to meet you. You have such a bright future. I'm excited to see your journey. I'm excited to build a network between us. And it's funny because as we're talking, there's a couple of people that when we're off, I'm going to introduce you to. Once again, thank you so much. I'm going to put on all our show notes, how to get a hold of Sean. There's so many things this guy's doing, and I'm sure he could probably help you with sales, with marketing. There's tons of stuff he could help you with. So we're going to put that on all our show notes, how to get a hold of Sean and how to network with him. Once again, thank you, brother. Awesome talking to you, man. Thank you so much, brother.
Likewise, man. Thank you. Fun conversation. We'll do it again.
That's a wrap for today. Hope everybody enjoyed our podcast. Special thanks to Sean Gray for taking time out of his busy schedule to be a guest on our show. Great young future for this young entrepreneur. If you guys enjoy this podcast as much as I did, tell your friends, tell your family. We're trying to build something special. Spread the word. Leave 5 stars reviews. We greatly appreciate that. Until next week, everyone, keep moving forward.